Hey everyone! So this is going to be a little bit shaky because I'm literally holding my MacBook. I'm about to go teach, but I just wanted to record this part so that I don't forget this revelation that I just had, and I'm going to expand on it in a less shaky way, I promise. So if you can make it through these first few seconds, you get to be rewarded with a video that was recorded later after this on a flat surface, not my literal hand holding my MacBook. I made a comment in my last video that I wanted to expand on because I think it's really important. And the comment that I remember making, as best of my ability as I remember it, was along the lines of we as humans, and me specifically, I have a tendency to see my past failures or my, I guess you could say, inadequacies, perceived deficiencies, lack, whatever you want to call it, but not see the good. And one major area that I know that I do that in, for me specifically, and maybe this will be relatable for others, is in regards to education. Because and I have had, I smile and laugh because I'm like, I've had so many conversations about this with my sister, with my therapist, with so many of the important people in my life of I don't feel like any academic pursuit that I want to do is even worth it to think about or to entertain the idea, let alone pursue, because in the past I never believed that I would succeed at them. And that belief led to a result of not succeeding. I just gave up before, in so many situations. I gave up because I was literally told by teachers and by family members that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't smart enough in this area. Why am I not as smart as my sister? Why am I not as smart as this person? And I'm only saying this because my sister and I have had this conversation. I'm not trying to be like, oh, my sister's so much smarter than me. She is. She is smarter than me. But we undermine ourselves in these ways that prevent us from ever trying. And I have loads more to say on the subject, but I've got to teach someone to come back in a moment and elaborate on this, but I just don't want to forget. Thank you all for watching. I love you so much. See you.
We're back. Whole new shirt. Yay. So, as I was saying, got a lot of negative feedback as a young child of oh, you're not smart enough, you don't apply yourself, you're not good at school, blah, blah, blah. And I know there's this debate in society over, you know, like what matters more, the environment that we're in or our inherent, personalities, beliefs, whatever. And I'm not a psychologist, I haven't gotten a degree in psychologist, but from my own lived experience, and I've read this somewhere and I can't remember where. If I think of it, I'll definitely post a link. But I believe it from my own lived experience that environment will win every time. And I hate generalizations because I think there's probably some cases where it might not. But for me, that has been sort of the truth up to a point. When I feel like I'm in a bad mental place or going down a bad path or listening too much to not my truth, negativity, negative truths, other people's beliefs too much, it gets to sort of a breaking point for me where I'm like, this is enough. I've had enough of this. But unfortunately, as a young child, it just built and built and built and built. And whether or not some of these messages were intentional or if you procrastinate, if you keep procrastinating doing your homework, you're not going to do well in school. But I just internalized. And I have noticed this about myself. I, for whatever reason, love to internalize stuff. So if people tell me something negative, I remember when I was 10 and someone made a negative comment about my body. And I remember to this day, 20 years later, I don't remember her name or anything, but I remember specifically, we were staying there. I remember too much. And unfortunately, and this is something now as an adult, since I've realized I'm trying to actively work on of okay, this is, I like to see it in this metaphor that I read once of you have two different sides of the street, right? And that is their side of the street. You can't keep both sides of the street clean. You have to keep your side of the street clean. So you can't control what other people say, do, think, feel, whatever. But you can control how you react to it. And unfortunately, fun times, tend to react to people's negative feedback by just scooping it up and dragon hoarding it as a personal truth about me. I'm they hate me. That must mean I'm a horrible person. And it's really fun times, of course, to do this. It's a great time all the time. It's so much fun. No, it's not. Because someone could give me hours of like positive feedback, like, oh, you're doing amazing at this, 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 and this. And they could say like one tiny thing. They're like, but maybe just, try to improve this. I'm like, they think that like it's absurd, honestly. Like I'm aware that it's like not a reflection of reality, and that's why I'm trying to fix it. But I really strongly believe that first, like when we're working with, being around children, we really need to be careful about what we say and do and how that might impact them and how they might internalize that. Because maybe they won't, but maybe they will. Because I did my whole life. So that's why I'm saying, like, I maybe overthink that. Obviously, as we can tell, overthinking, bit of an issue. But I really think about that. And because I've also worked with young children, I worked at preschools for years now. I've worked at summer camps, like taught children for years. So I really think about that probably because of this lived experience, like most definitely because of that. I don't want to say probably, like for sure because of that, because I think so much about like these messages that I got from the adults in my life as a child, and I was like, do I just like suck? Like, am I the worst? Am I just like awful as a person, just like to my core? Just like, am I made of horribleness? Which again might not have been what people were intending to say. Maybe they were just trying to like give me advice of like, hey, you should pick this path instead of this. And I was like, guess I'm horrible, guess I'm not smart, guess I'm a bad student, guess I'll never do anything good in life. And I just gave up. Like I said, I was just like, fuck it. Like, I guess it's predestined for me to be trash at school. So like, I'm done trying anymore. Fine, I'll live up to your expectation that I'm not good enough. I'll be not good enough, which is actually really hard to do. It like takes more effort, honestly, depending on what it is, of course. But like in my case, like school was pretty easy and straightforward for me, except for math. I was like, what? But for the most part, other subjects, like I understood easily. I could do the homework. I could produce whatever was needed to be produced pretty consistently, pretty easily, and get A's and B's. I was like, but not too bad. But I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm so sick of being like typecasted as this character that you don't like deserve my best. Like I was like a rebel without a cause in high school and college about this, and this is where we're coming full circle. I feel like I destroyed my own life in this way a bit. This is something I'm working through right now, which is why I bring it up, because I now don't think that, but I realized that I have thought that for a long time, that I destroyed my own life by doing poorly in school intentionally. Keyword. Like I could have done way better. And it used to infuriate my teachers and family members, because I could go from having an F, D or F, like straight up failing a class or almost failing it, to getting an A. And they're like, how would that be possible? Unless you obviously understand the material. I'm like if I put in the, and I'm not saying like if something's challenging, like, oh, you just need to work harder, stupid, obviously, or like, just try harder. Maybe sometimes, like, this is just my own personal case. Like, I would purposely, intentionally just like not do shit at all. Like, just do like nothing. Just do like the bare minimum or like nothing in school, and then just do a bunch of work to catch up and then get a good grade at midterms. Or like be failing at midterms and then get an A in the class, or like B in the class. And my teacher would be like, I don't remember how many times on my report cards it'd be like, needs to apply herself more. Like when she applies herself, she does like amazing. So they were like, why would you do this? Like, it doesn't serve you. And I was like, because, and of course I couldn't, like, this is coming from a 30-year-old perspective, not coming from a 14-year-old, from 16-year-old. I wasn't aware, or even a 20-year-old. Like, I didn't really get what I was doing at the time. Although, to be fair, in my last 2 years of school, I did well. I was like, wow, that's great. But I had other issues going on my freshman, sophomore year of college, which were more like coming out of suicidal depression and just pretending that doesn't happen. I was like, I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to be the person that has all these issues. So let's ignore that and like just try and fit in and do everything that everyone else likes and just like party and stuff. Even though I'd rather like read books and like learn and grow. And I was like, no, it doesn't matter. So I suppressed everything I believed in and did other stuff instead. And that was unfortunate as well. But I think part of it was because of it was built on this foundation of being told so often, like, I guess the point I'm trying to get at is this is like, for me personally, negative reinforcement does not work. If you tell me like, well, if you want to be stupid your whole life and I just do that, I'll be like, all right. Like, I am so annoyingly stubborn that I will do that. Like, I don't know what, it is mind-boggling to me and just part of my work. But of course, like I said, back when teachers were saying like, why would you do that? Why didn't you just apply yourself? I didn't have an answer for that. But the real answer for me looking back and after, like, what is it, a year of therapy or so, and like essentially like 10, 20 years of like really self-reflecting and like reading books, listening to podcasts, like just doing the work for like 10, 20 years, I don't know, whatever. For a really long time of like really actively looking for answers within myself and within my past, of being like, I did these things because I felt like I was completely unsupported by the entire adult community around me. And I can still so clearly, or not still, like I can see so clearly now, like why and how I felt that way. Because when I look back and think like, okay, well, who are the adults that supported me as I was, growing up? It's very few. Like, and that might not have been, like I said, that might not actually be true, but the people who I felt at the time, like they supported me and they really had my best interests at heart and were really trying to help me in a way that I needed to be helped. I haven't like counted them, but if I counted them in this moment, it would be less than 10 for sure. Like maybe around 5. I don't know. Like it's not great. So what my key takeaway with that is, this is like, oh, this is really depressing. It's like, how sad, poor tiny Megan. And yeah, it is. And I go back and like think about like, what did I need in those moments, and how can I give it to myself now and be more supportive, and how can I, just unburden myself from some of that stuff and let it go, which is why, segue into, I actually read this quote on my phone this morning after I thought about this, and then I was like, whoa, this is exactly what I was thinking about. And I don't remember who said it. It was buried deep in my phone. Just like looking for something else from like 2 years ago. I like screenshotted it. I don't know when it was from or what it was from. I will try to find it and credit the person who said it. But it's the concept that they said, your past is meant to be a lesson, not a life sentence. And this is something like, hit the pause button and re-listen to that. Like, your past is meant to be a lesson, not a life sentence. And it is something that profoundly relates to me. Like, I find it so relatable. Of like, I have lived my entire adult life, and I'm realizing this like today. I'm today years old when I'm realizing this. As if I were like a middle school or high school dropout. As if like I barely have even like a normal, like standard level of education, like required level of education. But I got a college degree. But in my mind, I don't even count that, because I feel like I wasted so much of my time there. And in high school, I feel like it didn't matter. I invalidated it to the point where it's almost like it didn't even happen. Like, I don't count it as an achievement in my life. And I think that is very important to recognize moving forward. And the reason this all came about is because I was like, oh, should I like look into a master's program, or like where, like, do I want to take like certain courses, certain certifications? Like, what do I want to do? Because I'm sort of in this transition period where I feel like my life is going to move in a new direction, but I don't know what. So I'm just like, okay, what things do people do to like move on forward, continue on the same path, whatever, like if I keep teaching, like I would want additional certifications, but like of what? And like, do I want a master's degree, or do I just want to take like, shorter courses, or do I want to change and go a completely different direction out of teaching entirely? I don't know. I'm in a real, I don't know what I'm doing phase, AKA being an adult for many of us. And that's when I was realizing, like, because I had such negative feelings when I was thinking about like school. I was like, but I can't get into a master's program. Like, and at first I was like, well, is it because like my GPA from college wasn't good? Is that why I'm thinking this? And I thought that's what it was initially. I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Kind of like fucked around in college, and I wish I hadn't. I regret it, obviously. But then I was like, I'm realizing that is not actually it. What I'm realizing, on a deeper level, like I said, is that I have invalidated it so much in my mind as if I never went to college, and maybe even in my mind on some level, like didn't even go to high school. Like I'm just wiping out those 8 years of work in my mind because I feel like I didn't work hard enough, and I wouldn't have done it the same way now as I did then. But I'm not going to get into all of it now in this video. Like, I don't think I was in a mentally healthy place to have done what I would do now. I was in like a really bad place during those 8 years. Like, not the entire time, but like most of the time. Like I said, suicidally depressed, attempted suicide multiple times. Like, so that's not from that place. That's not a like Megan at her best, Megan trying her hardest, Megan wanting to succeed. That is a, I gave up on literal life. Like I gave up on life. I was like, there's nothing for me here. So like, how could I expect myself looking back to be like, well, I should have done better in school? Like, what the fuck? Like I was trying to find a reason to live. Like I remember distinctly when I found one, because it was a conversation I had with somebody, because I spent a week, well, we'll get into a little bit because I brought it up. I spent a week in a rehab facility for basically like people, young people, like teenagers and below who have attempted suicide. And one of the workers there, we had like this, like, you have like little mini sessions. And one of the sessions was like on finding reason to live. And I remember she was like asking us, all of us, like this group of us, like, well, like what reasons could you find? Like, what can you think of? Like, what would be a good reason? Like, what would be something to live for? And I was like nothing really comes to mind, to be honest. And not at that point in time, I wouldn't say in that moment like I felt, you know, like incredibly depressed or suicidal. I was just like, I mean, like pretty neutral about it. And I'm in no way trying to invalidate depression and suicide at all, but I'm more saying like I was just like nothing was coming to mind, you know. So then after that, I had like sort of in like the recap like conversation with another woman, I finally thought of something, and I was like, and it was the first time I got excited since I had been, you know, struggling with this depression. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can get excited about things again. And so of course, now when I'm so far removed from that state of mind, of course I would do things differently. But it's like I've been wearing this as like a yoke around my neck, like I'm a failure of a person because during this really horrific time period in my life, I didn't show up at my best. And I also want to mention, like, even if you didn't have these things happen to you, even if you just were like, oh, I didn't really take school that seriously for no visible reason, I just like didn't try that hard, that's still okay. In general, for your life, when you're looking back, again, your past is meant to be a lesson, not a life sentence. It's all right to fuck up and then later do something differently. That's the lesson part. You're like, well, that did not go well. It was a mistake. I'm going to go ahead and not do that in the future. That is like what life is meant to be. And again, I feel like everything I say is like easier said than done. I'm like, you know, like this is like 20 years of learning for me. Like, I don't know why I said 20 years. That was from the body image comment. Still working on that, I guess. But like, what is it? 14 years of learning from these things. And it's probably gonna be a lifetime of like, wow, I've sort of still been doing this mistake or with that mistake or whatever. But it's okay to forgive yourself. It's okay to start again and be like, you know what? I've learned some stuff since then. If I want to go to school, and I haven't decided I'm going to school. This is not like announcement Megan's going to school. I have no idea. But I wasn't even giving myself permission to look or to entertain the idea. And that was where I was like, this is a problem. Like, anything is possible for me. I'm smart. I can do whatever I want. And you can do whatever you want too. You're smart. You're beautiful. You're wonderful. You're showing up. And it's okay to not be showing up right now either if you're like in a bad place. It's okay to show up better tomorrow or 5 minutes from now or 3 weeks from now. Just give yourself permission to be where you are and give yourself forgiveness for any part of the past that you had that you don't feel resonates with who you would want to be at your ideal self. Because we're not always our best selves. It's hard. It's impossible to be, probably. So let's just breathe in the energy we want and breathe out, throw in the trash, light on fire our past mistakes, and love ourselves for them and for what we've learned from them and for who we are and want to be now. Because I think that's a better route than being like, oh, I am this mistake that I made. This is me. I am that mistake. Don't do that. It's not worth it. Love you all so much. Thanks for watching. See you soon.